By varying MO, highly controlled, intelligent, and alert, serial murder can go on for years and years.
19-year-old Denise Nasland and 23-year-old Janice Ott disappear on a warm summer day at Lake Sammamish. Though there was no sign of the women, several witnesses told of a smooth-talking, good-looking young man named Ted.
Heat was starting to come upon him because of his daylight adventures in Lake Sammamish. There were clues now. A guy named Ted, a VW, a composite sketch.
Bundy realized that if he wanted to keep killing, he was going to have to go somewhere where there was no investigation.
So what does Bundy do? He has the presence of mind to move from the Washington area to Utah. And again, he starts changing his tactics.
He had to find a new killing ground. He used the excuse of going to the Utah Law School. He gave Liz the option of going with him.
He was her prince. She had dreams of him becoming an attorney and having a white picket fence.
But he was probably delighted when she said, no, I want to stay in Seattle with my friends.
We're at the houseboat where I lived, and I took a picture of him.
What makes this photo that has surfaced from Mary Lynn Chino so incredibly interesting and incredibly important is because he's dressed in basically the same outfit that he had worn at Lake Sammamish on July 14th of 1974.
She was crying, and I just, kind of gave him a goodbye, and he got in the car and drove away.
Within 12 or so hours, he would be murdering the Idaho hitchhiker.
After this picture appeared, the task force received one call among thousands of others. This particular caller said a man named Ted Bundy looked, quote, something like the picture.
Liz turned in Ted, and the police never did anything with it.
She called the police more than once, stating that she believed her boyfriend, Ted Bundy, was the killer.
Bundy went to the University of Utah School of Law.
When I was there at the law school, I would have regular contact with Ted Bundy, and everyone really liked him. There were periods of time when he was absent from class, and people would occasionally comment on that, oh, Ted's gone again.
The first semester, he's in class 3 times. He's like a kid in a candy store. He upped it in Utah, and he killed around 4 women in just a matter of weeks.
I threw away everything, handcuffs, everything. I'd get mad at myself a few weeks later because I'd have to go out and buy another pair. I mean, it's not comical, but that's what would happen.
Everything Bundy had within what is known as his murder kit, there were reasons behind it.
The tire iron, the garrote, and of course gloves.
And it wouldn't matter the item. Bundy planned very carefully to use everything that he had, but his standard murder kit, it wasn't, the items there weren't there by chance. They all had a reason. They were all connected to murder.
He said, I always tried to get rid of all the evidence that would put me to the crime, and so that meant I had to restock my toolkit all the time.
Bundy ran to the Mormon church as a kind of refuge kind of thing. That was his angle at that point. They didn't know he was a bad guy, so they took him in and they mentored him. He was going to join the church.
I baptized Ted after we discussed the church with him, and he made commitments. So we immediately started to invite him to our social events, parties, dinners, and he was a gourmet cook. And he cooked dinner for about 7 of us. Fabulous cook, and we chatted and had fun and played games. And
it's actually not uncommon for serial killers to have, quote unquote, a normal life while they're violently killing people.
Shortly after 7 o'clock on the evening of November the 8th, 1974, Carol DaRonch parked her car in this parking lot at the Fashion Mall. Shortly after began what she now calls her personal nightmare.
What makes the Carol DaRonch abduction so pivotal is that she's the only one who ever got away from Bundy.
She was approached by a man near Walden's bookstore. This man identified himself as Officer Roslin.
And he said, do you drive a Camaro? She said, yes. Said, well, my partner is holding the suspect, and this individual tried to get into the car.
I just was starting to feel a little uneasy, and I thought I could smell alcohol. And that's when he just promptly pulled out his wallet and showed me a badge.
So they walked across the street to a laundromat, and there was a side door marked 139. And he said that that was a substation. And he went and tried it, and he said the door's locked.
He said they would have to go down to the main Murray Police Department to sign a complaint.
He drove a Volkswagen, which I thought, well, that's kind of odd, but maybe he's undercover. And I got in. He headed down a side street, and then he suddenly pulled over up on the side of a curb by an elementary school. And that's when I just started freaking out. What are we doing?
He stops the car and he attacks her. She knows she's in a fight for her life.
And he grabbed my arm, and he got one handcuff on one wrist, and he didn't get the other one on, and the one was just dangling. I had never been so frightened in my entire life.
She jumped out of the car. The man jumped out, waving what looked like a crowbar. She broke loose, ran to the street, flagged down a passing car, and an elderly couple drove DaRonch to the Murray Police Station. The search for her abductor began.
And so this is the first time we have an eyewitness of somebody who survives a Bundy attack.
Sometimes the urges become such a compulsion that they can't control themselves. And that's when they make mistakes. His compulsion that day was so high, he had to kill somebody. The first one didn't work out. He's now frustrated, and so he goes to find a second victim.
We were having dinner in Ted's apartment. It was when the composite pictures of the so-called Ted murderer were coming out in Salt Lake City because a girl had been kidnapped and she had survived. And Ted said, I know how someone could do this. You would kidnap the person in one county, take her to a second county, murder her, throw her clothing in a fourth county, and her body or body parts somewhere else. I think Ted was a little proud of how he was getting away with it, and he explained exactly how he was doing it, knowing that we wouldn't ever catch on.
At the same time, while he's committing new murders in Utah, the cops in the state of Washington are finding bones, and those bones are ultimately going to come back to haunt him.
The bodies of 4 more young women were found on Taylor Mountain. All of them had been strangled or bludgeoned by this brutal killer.
The heat is building up on him. Ted then starts looking for a new killing field, Colorado.